Hi everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to Crochet with Lisa. Today I'm going to show you how I crocheted this really cute pig. I actually have two examples of the same project. We can see that one pig is a little bit bigger than the other one, and that is because of the type of yarn that I used. With this smaller pig, I used the soft and shiny yarn. This yarn I found at Michael's in Canada. It's a Loops and Threads brand of yarn. The light pink is called Smoky Rose, and the darker pink is called Peony. So I can turn this guy around and see what it looks like. Very cute. The pig that I'll be demonstrating today in this video is this one. And this one here I crocheted using the Bernat baby velvet yarn. So this is a velvet yarn. It is a medium weight of 4, and interestingly enough, the Loops and Yarn one is also medium weight of 4. But we can see the difference that the yarn makes even if we're using the same weight of yarn. So the size of your project will be determined by the actual yarn that you use. So this darker pink yarn from Bernat is called Orchid Hush, and the lighter pink that I used is called Potpourri. Okay, so they're both baby velvet. This gives our finished project a very nice plush feel to it. I crocheted this pig using a 4.5mm crochet hook. This one here I used a 3.5mm crochet hook. The materials that you'll need to crochet one of these pigs will be the yarn of your choice and a crochet hook that you find will suit that yarn. I would experiment a little bit with the yarn and the hook to make sure that there are no larger holes in your weave. And what I mean by that, this first one that I did, you can see all the stitches around and kind of see where the polyfill is in there, especially towards the back. So if I were to do this one again, I would go down in the size of my hook. This one here, the crocheted stitches are closer together. The yarn is more of a plush type of yarn, and you can't really see holes between the stitches. On this one here I use some safety eyes. If you don't have safety eyes, you can certainly just use black yarn to make the eyes. So after your yarn that you're going to use, so decide which type of yarn, which hook is going to work with that yarn. A stitch marker is a really important thing to have, especially when you're working in rounds. Now you don't have to have a plastic one, you can just use a piece of yarn, but just something to mark the beginning of each round. Some sort of a yarn needle for sewing in the ends and for sewing the pig together. I like to use these pins. You can see it that way. This is a blocking pin. So when you're doing things like granny squares or other things, you can use these type of pins to block your work when you're finished. I find these pins are good for holding one part onto another part before I sew it. For example, if I'm sewing on the snout, I'm probably going to use the blocking pin to hold the snout to the head in the position where I want it, and then I'll sew it in place. So I like to use blocking pins. Of course, scissors, polyfill, of course, for stuffing the different parts of the animal with. I hope you really enjoy following along in this tutorial with me. You find it easy to follow. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, and you can follow along with some other great projects. So let's get started. Now we're ready to do the snout. For the snout, I'm going to use the darker color. Start with a magic circle. So chain 1, then we're going to do 6 single crochet in that magic circle. I'm going to place a stitch marker in that last stitch in the last single crochet that I made. So in each single crochet we're going to put 2 single crochets, so 6 single crochets will become 12 at the end of this round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's put my stitch marker back in. So that was the end of round 2. So round 3, we're going to do a single crochet in our first 3 stitches, and then we'll do 2 single crochets in the 4th one. So 1 in this one, 1 in this one for 2, 1 in this one for 3. Then in this 4th one we'll do 2 in there. So that's 4, 5. So 1 in this one is 6, 1 in this one is 7, 1 in this one is 8, and we're going to do 2 in this one, 9, 10, 1 in this one is 11, 12, 1 in that one, 13, and in our very last one we're going to do 2. So 14, 15. So now we have 15 stitches. In our next round, so this will be round 4, we're just going to do a single crochet all the way around, but we're going to put them in the back loops only. So each of our stitches has 2 loops, one in the front, one in the back. So we're just going to use the back loop only, and we'll put 1 in each. So we'll still have 15 single crochets all the way around. So back loop only. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and here's our last one, 15. Mark that last stitch. So what that back loop only does is it kind of gives a little ridge for the snout. It's harder to see in the velvet yarn. Okay, so for our last round, so this is round 5, we're just going to put a single crochet in each of our single crochets all the way around. So we're going through both loops again. So there'll be 15 again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so let's fasten off, snip our yarn, pull our yarn through there. Okay, so this is the snout. Now this starting yarn that you have, because I use the magic circle, it should not come loose, but I still like to give it that extra security just by weaving it in. This tail we'll use for sewing it on. Should have made it a little bit longer, but I think it might just work. Now it's time to add the nostrils. So I have some black velvet yarn on my yarn needle. If you don't have black velvet yarn, just find some black yarn that you have in your stash. Anything will do. So we can see the center circle right here, the beginning circle. I'm just going to bring my yarn needle up next to it. Leave a tail for tying it off, knotting it. Just going to come down because we just want little slim nostrils. Then I'm going to come over to the other side and make one the same size. If the yarn you are using is smaller, you can go through these a couple of times. I think one pass with this is enough. But if you need it, you could just go back in the same space that you came out and then go back again over here just to make it a thicker line. So just judge what yours looks like. So I'm just going to turn mine over. Snip my yarn, and then I'm just going to tie it. Tie a knot back here. This will be inside the project, you won't see it. So there are the nostrils. We'll have polyfill in here. So the snout is finished. So we'll begin the pig head with the lighter pink color. We'll start with a magic circle. So we chain 1 there, and then we're going to do 6 single crochets into this magic circle. So I have 6 single crochets in this ring. In each of these single crochets, I'm going to do 2 single crochets. So that will increase our stitches from 6 up to 12. So 2 into each. So that's 1, 2. So that is the end of round 2, and we should have 12 single crochets. Round 3, we're going to single crochet in our next single crochet. And then in the second one, we're going to do 2 single crochets. So we'll continue that pattern all the way around. 1 single crochet in the first one, 2 single crochets in the second one. When you finish, you should have 18 single crochets. That is the end of round 3, and we should have 18 single crochets. So round 4, we're going to single crochet in our next 2, and then in the third one we're going to do 2 single crochets. Continue that all the way around the circle. That is the end of round 4, and you should have 24 single crochets. For round 5, we're going to single crochet in the next 3, and then do 2 single crochets in the 4th. So we'll continue that all the way around. That is the end of round 5, and you should have 30 single crochets. So for round 6, we're going to do 2 single crochets in our first one, and then we'll do 1 single crochet in our next 4. So we'll continue that all the way around. So 1 single crochet in your first one, 2 single crochets in your first one, and then 1 single crochet in the next 4. So that is the end of row 6, and you should have 36 single crochets. Row 7, we're just going to single crochet in each single crochet all the way around, and when you end you should still have 36 single crochets. So that is the end of round 7. We should still have 36 single crochets. For round 8, we're going to do a single crochet in our next 5, and then we'll do 2 in the 6th one. So we'll repeat that pattern all the way around. So that is the end of round 8, and you should have 42 single crochets. Now rounds 9 through 18, we are just going to do a single crochet in each stitch all the way around. You can keep track of your rounds just by counting your circles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've just finished round 8. We're going to continue until we have 18 rounds. All right, I just finished round 18. Now before I go any further, I do want to attach the snout, which I have already crocheted, and the eyes. These are just 9mm safety eyes, and so they will have to be attached before the head is complete. If you don't have safety eyes, this one over here just has the black yarn used for the eyes. So the snout and the eyes can be attached after the head is complete if this is the way that you're doing it. But if you want to put safety eyes in, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to attach that right now. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to use the top of this sphere as the front of the face. So the snout will get sewn on right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to sew it, it's like 1, 2, 3, probably 3 rings out. So I'm just going to sew that on. I'm going to put a little bit of polyfill in there, and that way I'll know where to put the eyes into the pig's head. So I'll start sewing it if you are interested in seeing how to attach this. So I'm just going to line it up with that circle. I'm going to go down and through, make sure I hook through my light pink, and come back up through the dark pink. So if you can see that, again, I'm still following this circle. So down through, make sure I go through my pink, the light pink I mean, come back up, and I will go through the snout. So I'm just going to continue that. I'll go most of the way around. I'll stop and come back when maybe I'm over here. Then I'll show you how I'm going to add the stuffing, polyfill. Okay, so I've just made it around this fur and I have just a little bit left. So now I'm going to take some of my polyfill. Just stuff it in there. And then just finish sewing that side on. So I finished sewing that on around, and then I just pulled my pink yarn through to the inside. And I'm just going to tie my 2 yarns together. This light pink one is my starting yarn, so I just moved it over with my needle. I just wove it over a little bit. So I'll just tie these 2 together. So now I can just snip this yarn after I've tied it. So now I can attach the eyes. So you can decide where to place the eyes and then just secure them in. Okay, so now we're ready to continue with the head. So 18 rounds are completed, 42 single crochets. So for round 19, we're going to single crochet in our next 4 single crochets. Now in our next 2, we're going to do a decrease. So to do the decrease, we're going to go through the front loop only. You're going to yarn over, pull back a loop, keep that on your hook, go through the next single crochet, front loop only, yarn over, pull back a loop, and then you're going to go through all 3. So we've just done 1 decrease. So now we're going to single crochet in our next 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do a decrease, front loops only. That will keep our weave tighter together if we just go through the front loop. If we go through both loops, sometimes we get little gaps. So front loop of that one, front loop of the next one, then yarn over and go through all 3. So continue that same pattern all the way around. And at the end you should have 35 single crochets. So that was the end of round 19, 35 single crochets. So for round 20, we're going to single crochet in our next 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do a decrease again. So front loop, front loop of that one, front loop of the next one, pull back through all 3. So continue that all the way around. At the end we should have 28 single crochets. That is the end of round 20, and you should have 28 single crochets. So for round 21, we're going to single crochet in our first 5 single crochets. And then we're going to do a decrease. So we'll continue that one all the way around. That was the end of round 21, and we should have 24 single crochets. Now if you want, you can start adding some polyfill. It's up to you, you can wait. I always tend to wait till almost the last round to add my polyfill, but it's a personal preference. Okay, so for round 22, we're going to single crochet in our next 2 single crochets, then we're going to do a decrease. So now we're going down to 18 single crochets. So single crochet in your first 2, then you're going to do a decrease, continue that pattern all the way around. That's the end of round 22, and you should have 18 single crochets. Now I've just gone ahead and added some more polyfill. So for round 23, we are going to single crochet in our first one, and then we're going to do a decrease. So our 18 single crochets will go down to, or will decrease till 12. Okay, so just continue that pattern all the way around, single crochet in the first one, and then decrease. That is the end of round 23, and you should have 12 single crochets. So here's our last round. Make sure that you've stuffed your head as much as you want it to be stuffed. I try and really jam it in there, but then push it away from where I'm working. Okay, so our very last round, we are going to decrease all the way around. So we're going to go in the front loop of our next 2. Do a decrease. So we'll do this all the way around, so we should have 6 single crochets when we end this row. So that's the end of round 24, and there are 6 single crochets. Don't need the stitch marker anymore. Snip the yarn Just bring the yarn through that loop. I get a yarn needle. And I'm just going to go up through the front loop of each of these 6 stitches. Okay, and then we can just pull on it and that will close that hole for us. So and then we just take that yarn, we can push it through just give it a pull, and then that is closed. Okay, we just need to snip the yarn off over here, and it's all secured. So now we can just squish the head into the shape we want it to be, and we are ready for our next part. Now we're going to start the ears. So I'm going to use the lighter pink, make a slip knot, and chain 8. So after we've made our chain 8, we're going to go to the second chain from the hook. We're going to do a single crochet in there, and all the way across would be 7 single crochets. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and one more is 7. So this is what our work looks like. So now we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn our work, and we're going to single crochet in each of our 7 all the way across. So no decreasing, we'll decrease on our next row. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn again. So in this row we're going to decrease. So we're going to decrease in these first 2 and the last 2. So we're going to go into the first stitch. You're going to yarn over, bring back a loop. Going to go into the second one, yarn over, bring back a loop, yarn over, and we're going to go through all 3 at the same time. So now we're going to do a single crochet in our next 3. Then we should have 2 single crochets left. We'll do the same thing. So we're going to go through the first one, yarn over, bring back a loop, go through the second one, yarn over, bring back a loop. We've got 3, yarn over, and go through all 3. So now we have 5 single crochets. So chain 1, turn it. We're going to single crochet in all 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chain 1, we're going to turn. Now we're going to decrease again. So into our first one, pull back a loop, go into our second one, yarn over, pull back a loop, then we'll go through all 3. We'll single crochet in our middle one. We should have 2 left. We'll go through, yarn over, pull back a loop, go into the next one, yarn over, pull back a loop, and we'll go through all 3. So chain 1, we'll turn, I'm going to single crochet now in all 3 of them. So chain 1, turn. So now we have 3 single crochets, so we're going to decrease in the first 2. So we'll insert our hook, yarn over, pull back a loop, go through our next stitch, yarn over, pull back a loop, pull through all 3, and then we'll just do a single crochet in the last one. So we have 2 single crochets. So chain 1, and now we're just going to decrease again. So we have 2 single crochets. So we'll go through the first one, yarn over, pull back a loop, go through our second one, pull back a loop, and then we'll just pull through all of them. So we'll just fasten off. So here's the triangle for the ear. I'm just going to weave in this very top one, and then I'll come right back and I'll show you how we'll do the edging. So I've woven in this end up here. This one I'm not going to weave in because I'm going to use this tail for sewing the ear onto the head. I meant to mention to leave a longer tail for the purposes of sewing in. So I'm going to use the darker pink for the edging on here. So I'm just going to go to the bottom corner of row 1. Just going to tie it on. So I'm going to go through that space, yarn over, pull back a loop, chain 1, then I'm going to single crochet in that, I'm going to flip it this way, single crochet in that same space. Then all up along this edge, I'm just going to evenly space out some single crochets. When we get to the tip, we can probably just put like a little picot up here. So I'm going to chain 2. Then I'm going to come back in through, see these 2 right here, these 2 stitches. I'm going to go through both of them, do a slip stitch. And we'll continue down this side, putting single crochets all the way along. To this bottom corner, we'll just fasten it off. Now I will weave those ends in here, and I'll use the light pink for sewing. So we just need 2 of these ears. My dark pink ends have been woven in. The light pink tail is left for sewing in, and 2 ears are completed. So these are ready to be attached to the head. I will show you how I sew on the ears. This one here is attached. This one is not attached yet. So I do hold them in place with these pins. They're just called blocking pins. I find them quite helpful, but you can use whatever you have on hand. These I found at Walmart in Canada. So I've just put a pin in both sides of the ear. For positioning, after the snout was sewn on, I went back about 10 rows and I tried to sew the ear right along one of those rounds in that row. Okay, so I have this one pinned, kind of the 10th row back from here, but you can look at your pig and decide where you think those ears look the best. So just as I did for the snout, I'm going to pull this pin out. I go down into the head and then back right into the ear. So down into the head, I'm going to go along the back of the ear. Make sure if I go through the head, then I come up through the ear. If you can see what I'm doing there. Just going to try and keep it on that same round. I'm going to pull out my next pin. So I've come all along the back, but then I'm also going to go along the front. I like these ears, they flop forward a bit. So at the very end, I'm just going to take my yarn and I'm going to sink it into the head. You can see in the very back, this was from my other ear. So I'm going to come out in the same space, or try to. This yarn was longer than that one. I'm just going to tie them. I'm going to sink them back into the head again. For the body, we'll start with the lighter pink. So we'll just start with our magic circle. Chain 1. Then we'll do 6 single crochet into that magic circle. So for round 2, we will put 2 single crochets into each of our 6 single crochets from that first round. So we'll end up with 12 single crochets. So that's the end of round 2, and I have 12 single crochets around. For round 3, I'm going to single crochet in my first single crochet, 2 single crochets in the next one. So 1 in the first one and then 2 in the next one. Repeat this all the way around, and at the end we should have 18 single crochets. So that was the end of round 3, and I have 18 single crochets. For round 4, I'm going to single crochet in the next 2, and then in the third one, 2 single crochets. So in the first one, I'll do 1 single crochet, in the second one, 1 single crochet. And in the third one, I'll put 2 single crochets. Continue this all the way around, and at the end we should have 24 single crochets. That is the end of round 4, and we have 24 single crochets. So for round 5, we'll do 2 single crochets in our first single crochet, and then we'll do 1 in each of the next 3. So we'll continue that all the way around. When we get to the end, we'll have 30 single crochets. That was the end of round 5, and we have 30 single crochets. For round 6, we're going to do a single crochet in our first 4, and then 2 single crochets in our 5th one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 in our 5th one. Continue that all the way around. At the end, you should have 36 single crochets. That is the end of round 6, and there are 30 single crochets around. For round 7, we are going to do a single crochet in our first 5, and then 2 single crochets in our next one. So that's 5, and in our 6th one we'll put 2. So continue that all the way around, and at the end you should have 42 single crochets. That is the end of round 7, and there are 42 single crochets. For round 8, we're just going to single crochet into each single crochet all the way around. That is the end of round 8. We still have 42 single crochets. For round 9, we're going to do 2 single crochets in our first stitch, first single crochet. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in each of our next 6. So we're just going to continue that same pattern all the way around. When we are done this round, we will have 48 single crochets. That is the end of round 9. We have 48 single crochets. Now rounds 10 all the way to rounds 25, we are just doing a single crochet in each single crochet around. So we're keeping at our 48 single crochets. Remember, you can count your rounds just by counting your rings. So when you finish 25 rows in total, we'll meet back here and then we'll start to decrease. I've just finished the 25th round. So for round 26, we're going to start our decrease. So we'll single crochet in our next 6 and then we'll do a decrease. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then remember, when we decrease, we're going to go through the front loop only of the first one. Yarn over, pull back a loop, keep that on your hook. Go through your second one, front loop only, yarn over, pull back. Then we're going to go through all 3. So we'll continue that all the way around. At the end, we'll have 42 single crochets. So we'll go from 48 to 42. So single crochet in your first 6th, and then decrease in your next 2. So that is the end of round 26, and there are 42 single crochets. For round 27, we're going to single crochet in our next 5, and then do a decrease. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to decrease. Front loops only. So we'll continue that all the way around, and at the end there should be 36 single crochets there. That was the end of round 27. Should have 36 single crochets. For our next round, round 28, we're going to single crochet in our next 4 and then do our decrease. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll decrease. So we'll continue that all the way around. At the end, there should be 30 single crochets. That was the end of round 28, and there are 30 single crochets. So for round 29, we're just going to single crochet in our next 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do a decrease. So we'll continue that all the way around, and at the end there will be 24 single crochets. That is the end of round 29, and there are 24 single crochets. So at this point we might want to add some polyfill. Whenever I add polyfill, I always pull my loop out so I don't lose that one. I didn't stuff it too much with polyfill because we still have the chance to add more polyfill. So in round 30, we're going to single crochet in our first 2 and then do a decrease. So 1, 2, and then decrease. We'll do that all the way around, and when we're finished this round we should have 18 single crochets. That is the end of round 30, and there are 18 single crochets. I'm going to add a little bit more polyfill. Okay, so I have it stuffed pretty firmly for my liking. So for the next round, which is round 31, we're just going to single crochet into our next single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. So at the end of this round, there will be 12 single crochets. That was the end of round 31, and there are 12 single crochets. So for our last round, we're just going to do a decrease all the way around. So our 12 single crochets will become 6. That is the end of the 32nd round. So I'm just going to snip the yarn. I'm going to put my tail on a yarn needle. I'm going to go through that loop. Now I'm just going to go through the front loop only of all 6 stitches. Give that a pull. We can just sink this into our circle. So I like to go through right where we end it, push the needle through. Here it is, pull it out. Give it a tug to make sure that's nice and snug. Snip it. Now you can just squish it into the shape that you need it to be. We'll start our legs with the darker pink. Start with a magic circle. Chain 1 and then do 6 single crochets in our magic circle. In each of our single crochets, we're going to put 2 single crochets. So we'll go from 6 to 12. So that's the end of round 2, and there are 12 single crochets. So for round 3, we're going to do a single crochet in our first one, and then do 2 in the next one. So we'll end up with 18 single crochets. So that was 1, and then 2 in this next one. Oops. So 2, 3. So just continue that all the way around, and at the end we'll have 18. So that's the end of the third round. We have 18 single crochets. We're just going to slip stitch into that first single crochet. Fasten off. So now we'll take the lighter pink. We'll join anywhere but in the back loop only. So I'm just going to yarn over, chain 1, and single crochet in that same space. So in the back loop, we'll single crochet in each one around. So we'll end up with 18 single crochets. So that's the end of the fourth round, and we still have 18 single crochets. So now we're just going to single crochet into each single crochet all the way around. We're going to do that until we have 10 rows in total. So we'll keep 18 for each round, and we'll keep working until we have 10 rounds in total completed. Just at the end of the 10th row, just slip stitch into our next single crochet. Fasten off, but leave a tail long enough for sewing in. For the tail, we'll use the darker pink. We're going to just make a chain. We'll chain 18. So we have 18 on this chain. We're going to go to the second chain from our hook. We're going to put 3 single crochets in there. We're going to do that in each chain all the way along up until the last chain, and in that last chain we'll put 2 single crochets and a slip stitch. So meanwhile, 3 single crochets in each chain, and then I'll meet you at the last chain. Just getting to the last chain. So I'm just going to do 2 single crochets in there. Then we'll end it just with a slip stitch. We'll cut a tail for sewing. So there we have our tail. A little curly tail. It's cute. Now we're ready to sew it all together. So I just make sure that I roll the body out, make sure it's the shape that I want it to be. Can start with the head. So I will use this part of the body as the front. So this was the beginning. Just lay the head up there. Find a spot that works for you. And with my pink yarn, I'm just going to sew in through the body, up through the head, all the way around. I'll come back when I'm halfway around just to show you how it's going. Just at about halfway around. So I've sewn it over there, started over here, left this starting tail so when I'm finished sewing I can tie it with that one. So I'm right here, I've just come through the body, so I'll go through the head. So pretty well that's it, just looping through the body and then through the head, alternately back and forth. Just tugging on my yarn to make sure it's nice and secure. So when I get here, I will just tie this ending yarn to the beginning yarn, tie it into a knot, and then I will sink that down into the pig. So I'm just attaching the legs right now, so I'll show you how I try to work it. This one here I've already sewn on. So this one here I want to put it in its correct position. So what I have done is with my ending tail, I've already looped it through the body at about the distance that I wanted apart from this leg. So I've added my polyfill. So I want the leg to be distanced forward about the same as this one. So I've got these blocking pins and I will just put a few of these in around just to kind of hold it in place. So when I'm happy where it is, I'm just going to take my yarn needle and I'm just going to go in through the body and then through the leg. Well, actually here I've just come up through the body, so my next stitch will be down through the side of, you can see that, through the side of the leg, and then I'll hook it in through the body again. I'll do that all the way around, and when I get to the end I will probably add a little bit more polyfill in there. Okay, so I'll just, that's how I sew it on. I'll just sew it all the way around to the end. I'll make a little knot and then I will just sink that into the body. Okay, so all four legs will be sewn on in similar manner. You just need to decide where the legs look best and stitch them on. For the tail, just find your spot in the back side. Here's the middle. So I've just gone through with one piece of yarn. I'm going to take the other one. I'm going to go through that same space, but I'm just going to go, if I could show it to you. So I've went this way to this way with that piece of yarn. With this piece of yarn, I'm going to go back the other way. So in here and out there. So I'm going to tie a knot. Just going to cut my yarn to a more reasonable working length. Put on my yarn needle and just sink that into the pig somewhere. Just give it a tug and snip that yarn. So there we go, the tail is attached. The pig is now complete. So I think it turned out quite cute. Sure, any child would love to play with it. So I really hope you enjoyed following along in this tutorial with me today. You found it easy to follow. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, and you can follow along with some other great projects. So have a great day and happy crocheting!